Old books, newspapers, and ancient records all describe the same shocking discovery. Giant human skeletons unearthed across the world. Some were said to be 10 to 12 feet tall, buried in mounds long before modern history began. Strangely, many of these reports later disappeared, removed from archives or dismissed as hoaxes. Were these just exaggerated stories, or evidence of a forgotten race of giants that history chose to erase? For centuries, old manuscripts, newspapers, and historical accounts have mentioned something extraordinary: the discovery of giant human skeletons. In the 18th and 19th centuries, local newspapers in the United States, Europe, and even parts of Asia reported excavations where skeletons measuring 8 to 12 feet tall were allegedly found. These reports often described unusually large skulls, massive femur bones, and burial sites unlike normal human graves. What makes these accounts unsettling is their consistency. Different regions, different cultures, yet similar descriptions. Ancient texts like the Bible, Greek myths, and Native American oral traditions also speak of giants who lived alongside early humans. At the time, these discoveries were treated seriously, sometimes even investigated by scholars and institutions. However, as archaeology became more formalized, many of these reports were reclassified, ignored, or explained away as misidentifications, exaggerations, or journalistic errors. No complete giant skeletons exist in modern museums today, which raises a question many still ask. Were these early reports simply mistakes, or did something not fit the official story of human history? As reports of giant human skeletons continued to appear throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, something deeply unusual began to happen. The evidence started to disappear. Early newspapers often described discoveries in great detail. Measurements, sketches, witness testimonies, and even the names of local officials present at the excavations. Yet today, many of these same reports are either missing, redacted, or dismissed as unreliable sources. Multiple historical accounts claim that large skeletal remains found in burial mounds across North America were collected and transferred to museums, universities, or early scientific institutions. In several cases, representatives linked to organizations later associated with the Smithsonian were reportedly involved. After this transfer, the bones were never publicly displayed, never cataloged, and never studied again in any transparent way. Official explanations suggest these remains were later identified as mismeasured human bones, animal skeletons, or individuals suffering from gigantism. Others were allegedly lost, damaged, or discarded due to poor preservation methods of the time. However, critics find this explanation unsatisfying. Why were so many of these finds initially described as extraordinary, only to be quietly downgraded or erased? What raises further suspicion is the pattern. Reports of normal human skeletons from the same excavations were often preserved and documented, while the larger-than-normal remains seem to vanish from the historical record. Skeptics argue this reflects scientific caution, not conspiracy. But others ask a troubling question. If these discoveries were simply errors, why not keep them as examples of early archaeological mistakes? To some researchers, the disappearance suggests that these finds challenge the accepted narrative of human evolution in ancient history. Acknowledging their authenticity would have required rewriting parts of the official timeline, something institutions may not have been ready to do. Whether this was intentional suppression or systematic neglect remains debated, but one fact is undeniable. The physical evidence is gone, and with it, the opportunity to verify the truth once and for all. When modern scientists examine the claims of giant human skeletons, they begin with biology and physics. According to current understanding, the human body has structural limits. Bones, muscles, and the cardiovascular system can only support so much mass. From this perspective, humans standing 8 to 12 feet tall would face serious problems with bone strength, blood circulation, and metabolism. This is why most scientists argue that true giants, as described in old records, are biologically improbable. One commonly cited explanation is gigantism or acromegaly, rare medical conditions caused by hormonal disorders. Individuals with these conditions can grow unusually tall, sometimes exceeding 7 or 8 feet. Skeptics suggest that early excavators, lacking modern measuring tools, may have exaggerated sizes or misunderstood fragmented remains. A large femur bone, when removed from context, could easily be assumed to belong to a much taller individual than it actually did. However, critics point out that gigantism alone does not explain everything. Many historical reports mention proportionally large skulls, double rows of teeth, and symmetrical skeletons, features not typical of known medical disorders. Additionally, some burial sites described in old records were consistently larger, suggesting intentional design rather than isolated medical anomalies. Modern archaeology emphasizes verifiable evidence, such as carbon dating, DNA analysis, and peer-reviewed documentation. Because no complete giant skeletons survive today, mainstream science concludes there is no conclusive proof. Yet this conclusion relies on the absence of evidence, not the evidence itself. And absence, critics argue, does not automatically mean non-existence. This creates a tense divide. On one side are scientists demanding physical remains. On the other are historians and independent researchers asking why so many early accounts say the same thing. Were generations of observers simply mistaken? Or did modern science inherit a filtered version of the past? The debate continues because it sits at the intersection of science, history, and human bias. And until new discoveries are made, the question remains unresolved. Not because it is impossible, but because the key evidence may no longer exist. Even if physical evidence of giant humans is scarce or lost, their presence is echoed in myths, legends, and oral traditions across nearly every culture in the world. From ancient Mesopotamia to pre-Columbian America, stories of towering beings appear repeatedly, suggesting that the idea of giants was not simply a coincidence or exaggeration. In the Bible, the Nephilim are described as a race of giants who walked the earth before the Great Flood, their size and strength leaving a lasting mark on early human memory. Greek mythology tells of the Titanomachy, the epic struggle between gods and titans, who were enormous beings of immense power. In Norse legends, giants, or Jotun, were primordial beings existing before humans and gods, often associated with natural forces like mountains, storms, and frost. Even in Africa, tales of massive warriors and early giants appear in oral histories, particularly in regions like Ethiopia, where the kingdom of Aksum and other ancient civilizations recall people of extraordinary size and strength. Across the Americas, Native American tribes recount stories of stone giants and warriors of incredible height who lived long before recorded history. Some mounds and ancient burial sites in North America were said to hold skeletons larger than any ordinary human, and the legends often describe them as protectors, warriors, or even spiritual beings. Similar stories appear in South America, where Incan and Amazonian myths speak of gigantic humans who lived in harmony with nature, only to vanish mysteriously. Even in Asia, legends abound. In India, texts like the Mahabharata and Ramayana mention beings of immense stature and supernatural strength, often portrayed as demigods or warriors who fought epic battles. In China, myths about the giant Yu, who controlled floods and shaped the land, suggest that giants were seen not just as real, but as integral to the formation of the world itself. The global pattern is striking. Giants appear in myths across every continent, often described in similar ways: enormous height, unusual strength, and roles as early rulers, warriors, or divine beings. Critics argue these stories are symbolic, representing human fears, natural forces, or societal ideals. But the consistency of the tales, combined with scattered historical reports of large skeletons, raises the question: could these myths have originated from real encounters with unusually tall humans long ago? The fact that these stories survived for millennia suggests they were deeply significant to ancient cultures. Oral traditions, legends, and sacred texts were not casual tales. They were vehicles for memory, moral lessons, and cultural identity. That the giant archetype recurs so universally implies a shared human memory or experience that transcends geography and time. While modern science demands physical evidence, the persistent presence of giants in global mythology cannot be ignored. Whether these beings were literal humans, symbolic representations, or a mix of both, their legends continue to inspire curiosity, debate, and wonder. The mystery remains, and perhaps the truth about giants, like so much of early human history, has been buried, forgotten, or deliberately hidden. One thing is certain, across continents and centuries, giants are more than just a myth. They are a thread connecting cultures, legends, and lost history, reminding us that the past may hold secrets far larger than we ever imagined.